Alright, what's going on, guys? It's Brev. Welcome back finally to a new tier list video. The date today is June 19th of 2022. As always, if you guys want to follow me on other platforms, my Twitch is twitch.tv/cbrev. My Twitter's at cbrevmlb. And if you're seeing this somewhere other than YouTube, my YouTube is cbrev. There are absolutely an insane amount of new cards in the game since the last time I made the tier list. This is probably the longest amount of time I've spent on any tier list I've ever made. So yeah, it was a ton of work. Sorry it took as long as it did, but hopefully we'll come through for you on this one. As usual, our disclaimers in the beginning. These are just my opinions. The point of this video is to give you a framework of what I think is good and bad, not necessarily to tell you what cards to use. If you're crushing it with a card and I say he's not that good, then keep using him. If you're really struggling with a card that I say is good, then, you know, ditch him. There's a ton of new options in the game now. I think the power level of cards in general across the board has risen pretty significantly in the last month, and you'll see that at several positions. One other disclaimer for this as well, I have removed all gold cards from the lists, aside from some niche examples like relief pitching. We've reached the point of the year now where golds are kind of just getting cycled out. You can still have some success with some golds, but there's so many good diamond options now that I just kind of took them off the list in general. In addition, we ranked the top 50 for each position, so if you don't see a card listed, unless I pull a Jim Edmonds from last video, it means I didn't think they made the top 50 for the position. There's some really deep positions that we'll talk about later that, you know, you can obviously have success with guys that I don't think are even in the top 60. Anyway, let's move on, starting with catcher. And just as a reminder for the color coding, you're going to see a lot of green in this tier list. Green represents a card that is new on the game, so a card that was not in the game when I made the last tier list video. So this is just to visualize, you know, the new cards that have been added since the last video that I made. And blue is a card that's in a secondary position and is also not new. If a card is in a secondary position and is new, I just left them green. Anyway, catcher got a huge injection of depth from the future stars that were dropped in the Futures of the Franchise program, and you'll be seeing a lot of these cards scattered throughout the top of the rankings for many positions. The Future Stars cards specifically are what I'm talking about. The Future Stars program was pretty cool in my opinion because it kind of raised the baseline level for like budget cards, but it didn't really affect God Squads too much. So I think one of the reasons it seems like the power level has increased across the board is because of this program. A bunch of really cheap 95s that aren't necessarily God Squad cards. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. But the budget squad people still have, you know, an upgrade to be had. Anyway, catcher, I still think the best one's Joe Mauer. I still think he's the best one by quite a bit. I know some people have been getting away from Joe Mauer, maybe from fatigue or whatever, but as far as the best catcher in the game, I think it's Mauer by quite a lot still. Question I get asked all the time, best Future Stars catcher in my opinion is Shea Langeliers. I think he just has the best stats across the board, although as you can see with all 5 of them being ranked right next to each other, they're all extremely close and very small differences between their attributes in different spots. But I think Shea brings the most to the table overall, so that's why I have him at number 2 there. Secondly, we have Campusano, then Henry Davis, Joey Bart, and Corey Lee. And then the last new card in S+ tier at catcher is 89 Mitch Garver, who is maybe the best 89 overall card I've ever seen. I can't believe that's an 89. Maybe even could have been higher. But the contact versus right really killing him there. But if you get him against a lefty, he's as good as anyone in the game, for sure. Newcomers in S tier, we got Kyle Farmer and 86 Salvador Perez. And then A tier, we got Brian Serven, Jose Trevino. And catcher doesn't have 50 cards because there's not 50 diamonds. So this is the only position where we didn't rank the top 50. There's only 28 of them here. All right, on to first base, which is a huge contention position for people running God Squads. This is also a question I get asked all the time. You know, someone, obviously we're speaking to the riches here, but someone who has Brett, Thomas, Ruth, and Devers has a ton of tough decisions to make with their lineup. And you can include Delgado in that too as well. This is my best rankings for first base that I could come up with. I will say, between Babe Ruth and Rafael Devers, I do have Ruth ahead, but it's extremely, extremely close. You can flip-flop them incredibly easily. I have Ruth ahead of Devers just because he hits lefties a little bit better. That's the only reason. But you can make the argument that Devers, makes up for his lack of power versus left with his quirks, which is totally fair. But I just have Ruth very, very slightly ahead. And I do still have Frank Thomas ahead of both of them, notably because Randy Johnson's still a thing, right? There's also a ton of good lefties in the game that you may want to use at other positions. And Frank Thomas, being a lefty pitcher crusher, new coined term, is pretty important for lineup construction, I've found. He's one of the main Randy counters that still exist, which I think is important with lineup construction at the moment because you're going to be seeing Randy a lot and all year. Anyway, we got Delgado 5th below Devers, then Pujols, and then Michael Toglia in 7th there. One of the future stars cards that could be argued on a God Squad. Insane card. Josh Bell with Diamond Defense is what I call that card. Disclaimer for him, though, he's super tall, so if you struggle hitting with tall people, may not be the card for you. And then rounding out S+ tier in first base, we got Edmonds, Mauer, and 93 Pete Alonso, who is maybe a little bit slept on. Wasn't the lightning card for May, but super, super good first baseman card overall. In S tier, tons of newcomers. Jared Walsh, Escobar, who's going to be all over all the positions he plays. 94 Ortiz, Nick Pratto, who is, just basically Michael Toglia, but doesn't switch hit. And then Garver and live series Paul Goldschmidt in S tier. Guy is absolutely popping off in real life this year. Love to see him upgraded to a 91 and destroys left-handed pitching. In A tier, we got Campusano and Lee in their secondary positions for newcomers. Otherwise, same as last slide. And I want to talk about Jose Ramirez as well. You'll see him drop pretty significantly on a lot of his positions compared to previous tier list videos. Even though his overall is now at a 94, the massive drop in contact versus left, I think, has made the card worse than he was before. So if you see him lower than he has been in the past, that is why. Here's the rest of the top 50 for first base if you're so inclined. Again, first base, super deep position. You can definitely have success with the card that is not listed here. On to second base, which got a lot of love. You can see just how much green is on this slide. One of the shallowest positions in the game, got a ton of new cards between Future of the Franchise and Topps Now, which is awesome to see. The top 3, though, did not change, in my opinion. I still have Utley number 1, which a lot of the other cards are catching up to Utley, I would say. I don't think Utley's a definitive number 1 by any means, but I do still think he's the best one. Obviously, that's why I have him ranked number 1. And close second, we have Mookie Betts and Ketel Marte. And then the top-rated new card, one of the best cards in the release, in my opinion, Justin Foscue. Card's so good. So much power, good enough contact, plays 3 positions, and also has the two-handed slap swing that, Mondesi, Blackman, in my opinion, the best swing in the game. That is what he brings to the table. So Foscue, love the card. Going to be near the top of the list for all of his positions as well. And then in 5th, we have Jorge Polanco, who is just another card that's always a glitch. Even though he's a 92 overall, most of that is because his fielding isn't too great, but the bat's insane. Switch hitter, tons of contact versus right. Absolutely love the card. And then in S+, we got Bryson Stott, Peraza, and Eduardo Escobar. And rounding out S+ is Morgan and Young from before. And then in S tier, you can see Jose Ramirez dropping down there. And then Gunnar Henderson, Baruhan, who is going to be rated higher at second base and shortstop than he is at his other positions because he gets a lot of his value from defense and speed. You'll see that with guys like Mason Wynn as well. And then we got Tatis, Altuve, Simeon, House, and there is Mason Wynn. Corey Seager rounding out S tier, still a very solid option. And then A tier at the top, we got Peguero and Martinez. And some Topps Now guys rounding it out. So a lot of depth here now. I think there's a pretty significant power level drop off between like S+ and S, I would say, for this position. But luckily a lot of the guys in S+ are pretty cheap. So you'll see that with the team build slides at the end, which was a ton of fun to make. Very good time to be a no money spent / budget squad player, I will say that. Obviously your team's never going to be as good as someone with live series done and George Brett and all that stuff, but the quality of no money spent team has increased drastically because of the cards that have been released recently. Here's the rest of second baseman ranked if you're so inclined. And speaking of tons of green, let's take a look at third base. Literally the only card in S plus tier that's not new is Pujols, which I find hilarious. Just a complete shakeup of the position at the top. Obviously Brett #1. George Brett's probably the best card in the game. You saw him at #1 for first base as well. And then we have Devers, who, you know, a lot of value at third base for someone who doesn't have Brett. So that's an opportunity to fit him into the lineup. And then we have Pujols and then Foscue again. I literally almost put Foscue ahead of Pujols for third base, because third base I think is the best position for Foscue because you don't get punished by his kind of low speed defensively. But I do love Pujols, so I put him ahead. But Foscue's really close. And then you'll see new cards that haven't shown up on this tier list yet. Brett Baty and Austin Martin. Baty's not really slept on. Tons of people love Baty, and he crushes the ball. But I think Austin Martin's pretty slept on. I'll make the comparison. If you look at Austin Martin and 95 Mookie Betts, they're pretty much the exact same card. So I think it has a lot to do with name value and the fact that people were insanely hyped about Mookie Betts and kind of are not that interested in Austin Martin. Obviously, Martin came out a couple weeks afterward as well. But if you compare the cards, Martin has, you know, a little bit more contact versus right and a little bit less power versus left. Otherwise, they're exactly the same hitting wise, even have similar speed. Mookie does have him beat by about 10 fielding, but a lot closer than you would think. All that is to say, Austin Martin, pretty insane card that not a lot of people use. I don't know why, but he's #6 at third base, and he'll be higher at other positions, as you will see. New Evan Longoria, BR Reward, very solid card. Probably wouldn't use him over Martin or Baty or Foscue, but super solid. And then we got Stop Peraza and Escobar rounding out S+. A little bit of some old guys dropping down to S tier here, Young and Ramirez. Then we got Gunnar Henderson, Khalil Watson in S tier. A little bit lower for third base for Khalil, just because a lot of his value again comes from speed and defense, which you don't get to capitalize on as much in the corner infield as you do in the middle infield. So that's why Khalil's a little bit lower here. He'll obviously be higher at shortstop. Then we got House Peguero Martinez again, and then Mike Schmidt in A tier right next to Troy Glass, basically the same card. And Baruhan dropping down quite a bit at third base again because his value comes from speed and defense. Here is the rest of third base. Incredibly deep position, maybe the deepest position in the game besides outfield. All right, on to shortstop. So much green going on here, and maybe I should have saved the Austin Martin discussion for shortstop, but I do have him at #2. I still think Ketel's the best one, but Austin Martin's really close. Like I said, you basically are allowing yourself to play Mookie Betts at shortstop when you use Austin Martin. Again, no clue why people sleep on this card. You'll see Foscue at shortstop as well. Probably his worst position because the speed, and his defense drops to silver there, unless you have him paralleled. I think 2 is what you need. Anyway, still top 3 though. And then you see Polanco there, Stop Peraza, Watson jumping way up because he gets the value from his defense and speed there. And then Escobar still an S+ as well. Escobar all over the top of these rankings. That's super good card. Active quirks and everything, very balanced switch hitter. Loved to see that card drop. And then in S tier, tons of new cards. The Correa's pretty good, honestly. I just think there's a lot better cards from the future of the franchise program. Marcus Simeon's pretty cool, but probably not worth the stubs based on where he's ranked. And then Mason Wynn jumping way up as well, obviously, because it's a defensive and speed shortstop. A tier, we got Schmidt again. Rollins, who is basically useless versus righties, which is why he's so low. But if you get him versus a lefty, that's pretty fun. And yeah, that's it for shortstop. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit here because we got a lot to talk about in the outfield and pitching. But here's the rest of shortstop. Okay, this is maybe the most surprising slide with lack of change positionally in the outfield. So, top 3 is not new cards. Another question I get asked all the time, how do you feel about Mike Trout after the downgrades? I couldn't care less. I don't really look at a card's overall rating. I don't think it matters that much as its attributes. Trout, in my opinion, almost got better for everyone that doesn't play on Legend. Obviously, he took a huge hit in contact versus right, but his hitting stats over the year versus lefties, his attributes have significantly improved. I think he's actually a much more balanced card than he used to be, and you know, he's still got the speed and defense. So, and obviously like every quirk that exists, which is why Trout is so good. So, I still think he's the #1 outfielder. I could not care less that his overall is lower. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Someone that I do think got upgraded significantly though is the guy in #3 now, which is Ronald Acuna Jr. Up to 94, another card that has gotten a lot of attribute changes that have really balanced him out. He also got moved to a primary right fielder, which is huge. You can just play him in right field and not have to worry about losing fielding attributes, as opposed to before when he was a center fielder, you were pretty much always moving him to the corner anyway. So now you can play him in right field with no penalty. And then I do still have Clemente #2. In 4th, Babe Ruth. I've talked about it in previous tier lists. I still feel strongly that outfield defense is not as important this year as it has been in past years, and that you can very easily get away with guys with poor outfield defense most of the time. They make most of the routine to, you know, semi-difficult plays. So that's why Ruth's #4. Obviously the bat's crazy good. Not higher than 4th though, because I do think Trout, Clemente, and Acuna, even though defense isn't as important as previous years, I still think they're better, well-rounded cards because they have the speed defense to go along with the hitting. Anyway, I have Castellanos in 5th, which may surprise some of you guys. Again, mentioning that defense, you know, he'll be fine out there. You can even get him to silver defense in right field at parallel 4 if you really want to grind that much. But a card that's 125 versus lefties in a game that's basically going to have Randy Johnson in every rotation for the rest of the year is definitely an S+ tier outfielder, in my opinion, especially at this point in the year. The ultimate Randy counter. I probably wouldn't platoon him either if you're going to start him. He's still 95-101 versus righties, which compared to other cards in the game is actually pretty good still. Maybe one of the most underrated cards in the game as well. It's just that outfield's so deep and people are playing so many different guys that maybe there's not a spot for Castellanos. But absolutely, at the very minimum, a must-have bench bat at this point in the year. And then you see Austin Martin right below Mookie Betts. Obviously in the outfield, the fielding is going to give Betts the nod there, but super close. Both ahead of Pujols. And then 96 George Springer, new BR reward as well. Rounding out S+ tier there. I have both of the new flawless rewards in S+ tier for their positions, which I think is a nod to SCS releasing some pretty good cards in the BR program. Been pretty happy with BR program overall this year. I think they've done a really good job. Moving on to S tier, 95 Aaron Judge, just barely missing S+, and obviously it's because his contact versus left. Everything else is crazy. Brett Beatty there, and keep in mind if you want to play him in the outfield, he can only play left field. Same with Delgado, who is still very close to top 10. Again, defense, you know, not as bad. He doesn't play as bad as you think he would. Gibson and Edmonds there in S tier, and then we got Mitchell, the new Larry Walker, and Giancarlo Stanton cards, and then Yoelqui Cespedes and Austin Hendrick rounding out S tier. Tons of depth here in the outfield. We got tons of outfielders in the program as well. Top of A+ is Toglia. Again, doesn't quite make S tier, but if you want to use another switch hitter, he'd be fine in the outfield. He's just not S for me because the speed. And then Reggie Jackson, Josh Salo, and then George Valera, Brujan, and PCA. They're rounding out A+ tier. And then here's the rest of outfield. This is a position I wanted to mention specifically, that if you don't see a card listed in the top 60 and you're having success with him, I would probably still use him. There's more than 60 viable outfielders right now. I cut a lot of diamond cards from this list, so take everything with a grain of salt. And if you don't see a guy here, I know people have mentioned they don't wonder why Tony Gwynn's never on these lists, and it's just because his power's basically unusable with how low it is, in my opinion. But if he works for you, he works for you. All right, moving on to starting pitching now. Randy's gonna be #1 for a long time, so we'll just skip ahead of him. I have Chris Sale in pink. I have him ranked #2, but he's not obtainable at the moment, which is why he is in pink. You can't actually use the card until they release the June monthly awards program, so a couple weeks away there, but thought I should rank him since they've already revealed him. And then we have Bobby Miller, number 3. Bobby Miller is an interesting card. He's a noob killer. He's going to dominate someone that can't hit outlier. Kind of struggles a little bit against a good player, but most cards do, I would say, except for Randy. I think he's definitively top 5. I have him ranked number 3. I just think when you're climbing ladder in ranked seasons, it's a must-have card for your rotation because you can just queue into someone who can't hit him and get a free win, basically. Brash, very close, though. Maybe a card you weren't expecting to see in the top 5. Had a lot of success with Matt Brash. Slider Slurve has proven to be very strong this year, thanks to Randy. So super solid card as well. Pretty close to Miller in velocity as well. Just doesn't have outlier, but still throws 100. And then I have Maddox in the top 5. I heard a lot of groaning and disappointment when Maddox was revealed attribute-wise. And I'm not sure why. I don't know what people are expecting from a 95 Maddox card. I actually think 101 hits per 9 is pretty high compared to what I was expecting. I think it's pretty on par with his actual hits per 9 on his 99 card last year. Anyway, I think Maddox is very good. Obviously, he's going to have the control and the break. He's going to be a finesse pitcher, doesn't throw hard. Some people don't like that. But overall, as a pitcher, tons of break, tons of control, and very solid hits per 9, especially at this point in the year. So I think he's top 5 as well. Glavine barely missing the top 5, but still top 5 until Chris Sale drops. And then we got Jackson Jobe in S+ tier as a newcomer as well. A couple of new cards in S tier. We got Detmers, Skubal, and Weaver. You can see Shohei dropping down quite a bit. A lot of these cards are kind of just getting outclassed by new releases at this point. And then new cards in A tier. We got Cliff Lee, Blake Walston, and Martin Perez. Here is the rest of the 60 for starting pitcher. I think I forgot to mention we did 60 for outfield and starting pitcher instead of 50 just because it's a deeper position. I would say pretty significant drop off in card quality on this slide compared to the last one. Alright, right-handed relief closing pitcher, we have a new king. That king is 95 Goose Gossage. Card's insane. If you max parallel him, he has almost max hits per 9, K per 9, but even without any parallels, he's at 119 for each, which is crazy. Amazing pitch mix. Does not have outlier, but I don't think it matters that much, especially this year when outlier doesn't guarantee you 102 every time. Yeah, card's insane. Amazing relief pitcher card. Definitely a must-have for a God Squad. Other than that, the top 5 hasn't changed. Still Williams, Jansen, Duran, and Cishek. We do have 91 Clay Holmes from the May Monthly Awards program. Very solid card as well. Hoffman, Wilson, and Helsley rounding out S tier. And then some new cards in B tier. And you may see some gold scattered around here, specifically Rob Dibble in A tier. Nothing has changed at all for lefties, especially at the top. We have new cards Sean Doolittle and Drew Pomeranz, but I think both of those cards are pretty awful. So that's why they are at the bottom. So nothing has really changed here. Alright, getting close to the end of the video now. Here's our team build slides. So keep in mind Green is new. So this is a guy that is now on the squad that was not on the squad last slide. And the amount of green you'll see on these slides is just a testament to how much the game has changed since my last tier list. This is the best team you can have with every card on your squad costing less than 15,000 stubs. I've also ordered the lineup, how I would order the lineup, so if you want to just use this team, you just order it that way and be on your way. Leading off, we got Polanco playing shortstop, then we got Brett Beatty in left field, Justin Foscue at second base, Rafael Devers at first base. Some people are going to try to tell me that Devers costs more than 15K because the opportunity cost of the Tops Now cards, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, do the program, get Devers for free. Martin in right field hitting fifth. Bryson Stott playing third base at sixth. Shea Langlier's catching and Garrett Mitchell playing center field. On the bench, our outfield righty is Yoelqui Cespedes. Our infield righty is Pete Alonso. Our outfield lefty is Austin Hendrick. Our infield technically lefty is Jock Peterson, can play the outfield as well. And then our switch hitter is Escobar, who I think is the best switch hitting bench card in the entire game. Rotation is looking like Sale when you can get him. Otherwise, it's Brash, Jobe, Marichal, Reed Detmers, and David Price. I do have Sale listed on all these slides and 6 starting pitchers instead of 5 just to account for the fact that you can't get Sale yet. But again, wanted to respect the fact that I have him rated super high. Bullpen, we're running 4 righties, 4 lefties on all these teams now. Same as before, except we added 91 Clay Holmes from the right side, and John Franco's price from the left side has dropped so much that he's now eligible for the under 15K squad. So that is the newcomers there. From the left side, we got Chapman, Franco, Loop, and Brad Hand. Next team build is every card is under 35K. This is shockingly similar to the under 15K squad, which I guess is just a testament to how many good, solid Future Stars cards there are in the game right now that are basically selling around their quick sell value of 15K. Forgot to mention on the 15K squad slide as well that Bobby Miller's like 20K. So he technically didn't make the team, but, if it was me, I would shell out the extra 5K to have a top 3 starter. He does make the 35K and under squad, though. Our lineup's looking like Polanco at shortstop leading off again. Instead of Garrett Mitchell, now we have 94 Jim Edmonds in center. And then Foscue. Devers playing third base now. Martin and Beatty in their same spots. Langeliers, Ketchen, and then Michael Toglia at first base, which is why Devers is now at third. Our outfield righty is Stanton. Infield righty is Alonso. Outfield lefty is Larry Walker. Crushes right-handed pitching. Amazing bench bat. Our technically left-handed infield bench bat is Bryson Stott. I say technically left-handed because he hits righties better, but I love the switch hitting and the positions that he plays. Great bench bat there as well. And then Escobar for our traditional switch hitter. The rotation is Sale when you can get him. Otherwise, Bobby Miller, Matt Brash, Roy Halladay, Jackson Jobe, and Marichal. And then no changes in the bullpen other than 95 Goose Gossage making it for the righties. I was surprised the card was under 35K when I checked the price, so that's definitely a card I'll be picking up for sure. Alright, and then rounding out the video, this is the best team possible if you have access to every card in the game. I think there's a testament to how much less green there is on this slide compared to others. The only new cards in the lineup are George Brett at third base and Acuna in the outfield. Entire bench has changed though, mostly from new cards / people getting demoted. Leading off, we got 93 Mike Trout in center, then Brett at third, Thomas at first base, then Joe Mauer, Ketchen, Clemente in left, Utley at second, Acuna in right, and Marte playing shortstop. On the bench, we have Mookie Betts, amazing bench bat if you have the luxury of not starting him, because he can play the outfield and second base, which is especially good when you're starting Chase Utley. It allows you to pinch hit Mookie Betts for Chase Utley in a left-on-left situation late game if you get stuck in that predicament. So if you're starting Utley, Mookie's like a must-have on the bench, I think. Obviously, Castellanos on the bench, just 125 versus lefties, not much to say there. Big sad if you have access to every card available. Both Ruth and Devers on the bench. That's kind of insane if you think about it. And then switch hitting Escobar, of course. The rotation is Randy, Sale when you can get him, then Bobby Miller, Matt Brash, Greg Maddux, and Tom Glavine. And the bullpen hasn't changed here either, aside from Goose Gossage being the best righty. So, sorry for the longer video. This one's approaching 30 minutes now, but I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. Again, this is probably the most amount of time that a tier list has ever taken me. This was so much work, so given the fact that you're into the video and you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate you dropping a like on it. That helps me out. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care. We'll see you next time.